cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the Streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the Streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the Salt of the Streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why Salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the Streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the Streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the Salt of the Streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why Salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the Streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the Streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the Salt of the Streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why Salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the Streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the Streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the Salt of the Streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why Salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
10 minutes.
There we go.
We're live.
Hey, now
Hello. We're out here. Salt of the Streets, live stream, pre-show, episode 115.
115.
Thank you
Zeke
for
in
joining
the
us.
house.
Things look a little bit different today. Obviously, we are going to have Larry for the whole show. It's going to be great. So we're doing this for Zoom purposes later on in the show. So the pre-show is like this. It's going to be great.
But I can give you sexy cam.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
I got the haircut last week, so well blended. Thank you very much. Shaved today just before I came here so that I could do the full cholo, the button up.
The full show with the button up. Yeah, I ended
am-
up shaving off the old beard skis, too.
Yeah, there you go. So it's gonna be great. I'm previewing my Coco Dad look. That's what I am for Halloween. It's the dad from Coco Melon. So we are drinking.
Little man loves some cocoa melon.
God, Coco. he
Coco!
says. Coco, Mama, Coco Daddy.
So what are we drinking here?
This is a
Cheers.
Rodeo Red from Pagosa Brewing. Shout out Katie and Lee for bringing this to us.
Shout out.
Pagosa Brewing. And then
Tasty little red.
Michael's, Jordan was going to tell me what the name of their company was, but Michael's sister and her wife own like a health studio, spa and like yoga and shit like that.
Interesting.
So
Michael's, so this is Aaron's husband's family.
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
his sister out of Pagosa. So shout out if you're in Pagosa. It's a very small town. Michael said when he left there, it's called Coco Daddy. She said that's fine.
Coco Daddy!
Yeah.
That's the Coco Daddy right there.
Michael said when he left Pagosa they had like one stoplight. So it
Damn.
would be too hard to find the spa in Pagosa. So either way, shout out. We're here. Thank you again for joining us. Episode 115. We're going to do a lot of big things today. It's going to be a great episode. We're going to talk about this book, Peril, by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa. There it is again, Peril, the close-up. I bought this. I finished it in 9 days. I'm saying that because I'm very proud of it. Been talking about it all day. We started this topic. We were going to talk about it last week because we were like, oh, General Million, this stuff came out in this book because it's so crazy. So I read this whole book, and we talked about it right before the show. It almost seems like people just read, you said the Amazon preview, and that's what they focused on because
because it was before the book came out.
Yes.
And then everybody was talking about like the conversations Millie was having with like his Chinese counterpart and the conversation with Pelosi and all that. All that was in the prologue.
Yes.
And I have a feeling that, you know, when they do the pre-purchases for the books, like on Amazon, you can preview the ebook and read like the first chapter. I was like, I bet you that's all everybody was reporting on, because there's so much more. I've only gotten about a third of the way through the audiobook at this point.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how like right after the first part of that book, like there's just really no more of that. It's all just Biden and
It's
you know.
It's essentially about the year leading up to the election, because like coronavirus happens during this time, and like all these Pagosa Spring, Pagosa Massage and Body. So
Boom.
there you go. Shout out Pagosa Massage.
Next
and
time
Body.
you're down in Pagosa, Colorado, do it up.
Yeah, it almost seems like, I know that it's not, but it feels like Colorado should just be east.
Yeah, it should be like right next
just
to like
right there. But it's
can we
like
just
all-
hammer it in between Idaho and Montana?
Yeah,
We just
that's
put
what
Colorado
I'm saying.
right
Exactly.
there.
It feels like it should be right there. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway,
weird.
so
They're very PNW for not being in PNW, right?
yes, exactly. That's why it feels that way. Exactly. So this book is largely about, like I said, the year leading up to the election, because like coronavirus happens in this time. It's before Joe Biden has even announced himself, and it's not good. So I feel so much more in here than just what happened with General Milley. While that definitely bears conversation,
Yes.
there's way more. So these are all color coordinated. These are all, and also, this isn't even all the notes. I annotated throughout the entire thing. These are just the ones that I felt, because a lot of it, at first I was just doing it for the show, and then I was like, no, I should be doing this for my own processes, like to be taking in this book better. So there's a lot of other things in here that are just me trying to figure things out and different quotes, and I'm like, if I need to come back to this, then I'll know that this is here. And so
do you mind if I take a look?
no, absolutely.
I'm just curious.
Yes, so they are color coordinated, election stuff, puppet leader, Millie, and then different lies that are in here. The blue tabs are lies. are things that I feel very confidently I could tear apart as a lie, and that is part of what we're going to do today.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's going to be a good time. Yeah, there's
I love it.
some dog ears in here for like where just an important section is. It's a lot going on.
This is like the equivalent of like the textbooks you prayed to God you got in high school. Somebody already went through and annotated everything that you need to know.
And
that's perfect. We could sell that for twice as much as it's worth on Amazon.
As weird as it is, when I was reading this and doing this, I thought, if I bought a used book and someone had already annotated it, like I would not be mad about it.
No.
I would kind of be jazzed that I was able to go through and be like, I wonder how this person was perceiving this and how they were processing all this information. So if when I have too many books and I get rid of some, this will probably be one of them because I don't see the need to read this again. Maybe I will want to one day.
Maybe a one-off is good.
It was fairly entertaining. Like I said, it's a really easy read, and that's part of how I was able to get it so quick. But
you say 9 days
9
total?
days. Whew. Yes. I received it last Wednesday. So
oh, damn.
9 days. I finished it last night, right about 10 o'clock. It was good. It's 418 pages, I think.
Yeah, and that font's pretty big. Spacing is pretty nice.
Yeah,
which is kind of good for the note-taking, too. It gives you more space to do that.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that with them little 5-inch tall joints, you know.
So we're going to talk about this today. We're going to be talking about the ongoing budget crisis, government shutdown, been delayed till December.
It's just a clusterfuck, dude.
It's really not good.
So bad.
It's all everything is terrible. Is really kind of the theme for the day, I think.
I think that's apt. That's very apt, I think.
Opposite of the Lego movie. Everything is terrible. And
everything is awful.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is awful. We could, when we're Steven Crowder one day, we'll pay somebody to come up with a whole music video.
Oh my God, that would be great.
Yeah, they'll write the lines for us.
Yes.
It'll be great. So, it's really awesome. I do want to mention we have our Patreon going on because now I'm just thinking of all the different types of content that we have that we're working on here. We have a lot of big stuff in the works. Colin is making a movie. It's gonna be a whole deal. That's all that I'm gonna say. I didn't even tell him I was gonna say that.
No, it's out there.
He might kill me afterwards. We don't know. I wasn't even supposed to bring it up. Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen?
It's a horror movie.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about the impending government shutdown, the crushing morosity. As they say on.
I'm going to do my best to black bill the hell out of Donovan today.
That's what you've been talking about. You said you've lost some hope, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have some Larry updates he's going to be on. We've been talking a lot about him over the last few episodes and kind of a little bit about what he's going into, alluding to it a little bit, so he's going to be able to give us some more details, a little bit of a better look into that. We are going to bring him on. I originally asked him on for a segment. I don't know why I did that. But now he's going to be on for the whole show because I realized that was stupid.
Yeah. He just hit me up. He'll probably be about 45 minutes late, but that's fine.
That's fine. So we are going to bring him on to talk specifically about the idea of minting the coin.
Mint the coin!
Right? Which is something that I just heard about in the last maybe 2 weeks. It's very weird. I also did decide, shout out to Brian at work, and I'm not hating on Brian, but I had a conversation with him this week about breaking points.
You guys seem to have some decent conversations.
Brian is a good guy. I like Brian. When I get to know him a little bit more, I'm like, Brian, why don't you come in on this podcast? I've never told him. I think most people figure it out. I'm sure somebody tells him eventually. People rarely ask me about it anymore. But I've never told him, like, yo, I do this podcast. But one day, when I get to know him a little better, I'm like, Brian, why don't you come in here?
Why don't you come on in, buddy?
Because Brian definitely seems like he says a little bit more on the left. I brought up to him, do you watch Breaking Point still?
I know you don't. Sporadically, maybe at this point. I watch some of the clips and stuff like that now, but I've pulled my funding. I'm not into what they're doing anymore.
So I told Brian that I felt like this week they got a better camera. And when I said that, Brian says, well, I feel like it was pretty good before. And I was like, I'm definitely not saying it's not. I'm just saying I felt like maybe over the weekend they got a better one. Is what I'm saying. Yeah. And so we tried. He said that same thing again. It's like, well, I mean, I feel like it wasn't that bad before. And I was like, I'm definitely not saying it wasn't good. Like that is not what I'm saying at all.
It's like, bro, on my podcast we do webcams. All right. Okay. I'm not trashing nobody.
I have no room to hate on Breaking Points. I'm saying I feel like good for them. I feel like they got a better one. So then Brian says to me that he thinks that they're being throttled on YouTube because he's noticed that their subscriber count has capped at like 590 or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't watch people's subscriber count. I don't even consider it. So I said to him, that's certainly possible. I said, but I also think that since they became breaking points, there's been kind of a marked change
Yes.
in the way that they do things, you know? And he gave me kind of a weird look, and I said, if you think about it, I said, Sagar is pretty much a conservative in name only at this point.
Yeah.
Right? So there's almost nothing conservative about him. And I think one of the good examples is this minting the coin thing, that when Crystal brings it up, he's like, oh yeah, for sure, mint the fucking coin.
Yeah.
What? Like, that doesn't... Somebody who's fairly new to holding conservative values, that doesn't seem like it's very conservative. So
It's definitely not.
yeah.
And that's been one of my driving factors away from breaking points, is the fact that it used to be a like a left right, kind of like the way we started, almost
Yeah.
in a way, a left right divide that you can come together on common ground on, find common issues, this, that, and the other thing. But as they've progressed and gotten farther away from their old home at the Hill, the content has suffered so much, especially on the conservative tilt, because Sagar just doesn't defend any of his quote unquote conservative principles anymore, and it's very frustrating.
And that's another thing I said to him, is he's unwilling to push back really almost in any way at all.
Yeah.
He will obviously allow her to lay out her entire argument, and then he's just like, oh yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll move on to the next point. Where is the representation from the conservative side that you were like, that's supposed to be your whole jam,
Yep.
I'm sending you a clip through. We can do that for the pre-show, right? Play a clip.
Yeah, we could do it for the
So,
pre-show.
Yeah, so it's a clip. It's a few minutes long, but it's of breaking points talking about Fauci, talking about Christmas, right? Because Fauci was on whatever MSNBC this week, and whoever the host was like, "Are we going to be able to get together for Christmas, or is it just too soon to tell?" And Anthony Fauci's like, "Yeah, it's just too soon to tell. I don't know, like the cases and all the stuff." And so at first.
So frustrating.
At first in the clip, I really felt like Sagar's really on it, He's like, "Oh, that's crazy. We have the vaccine now and all this stuff." And then it takes just a hard tilt to like, "Wait, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is completely counter to what you were going for." So, yeah, it's coming. Like I said, it's a couple minutes long, so it'll take a few minutes to come through, but that'll be good when we get to it. So we're going to talk about those things. Obviously, we have some COVID updates. You posted something great on our Patreon this week about some local Board of Health directives that are being considered. That's like a 5 or 7 part recommendation thing that's largely about vaccine requirements for small businesses and for people who come into the businesses, as if they're public businesses, and masking requirements and things of this variety. That it seems like the council is split like 3 to 4 for being in favor of the of the mandates.
Yeah. And even that gets a little contrived when you look at it.
Yeah.
Because the panel is made up of a couple kind of bureaucrats in the health department, if you will, in the health area
a doctor,
of government.
like the county doctor,
Yeah.
and then there's another official from the Board of Health. There is, so that's 2.
Yep.
There's the mayor of Bremerton,
Yep.
the mayor of Port Orchard,
Yep.
the mayor of Paulsbo,
Yes.
the county Board of Health director,
Yep.
and then
County Commissioner Ed Wolf.
so that's
I think that's 7. I think that's...
So that's who that doctor
yeah.
is. So that's Ed Wolf is who I was thinking of. So, and then there's also a deputy mayor on there. So maybe it's the deputy mayor of Paulsbo or something like that. But,
something like that.
like 4 of those people are like, "Oh, we need to mandate that shit right now."
Oh, yeah.
And
like one of the people, the mayor of Paulsbo, she is leery of the mandate at this point, because she's more concerned with what's going to come down from the federal government. So she doesn't really want to put her flag in the ground anywhere and plant a stance until she has guidance from the federal government, knowing what they're going to do. Because I'm reading between the lines here, but that'll run cover for whatever she wants to do at that point. If she can meet or do slightly less than the mandate from the federal level and all that. So as we get closer to, when does that kick in? October? I'm been so focused on the local one.
The local one happens October 18th.
Yeah.
The federal one, because I know I was talking to Trenton, I told you
Because it was October too, right?
theirs is in November.
Okay.
Theirs starts in November. I think it's November 15th that they have to be fully vaccinated or they start the HR process. I told you when I talked to Trenton about it at first, maybe maybe even the last time we recorded. Yeah, because I went to dinner after that, and we went to dinner with Trenton. He was like, "Oh yeah, you know, the head of my shipyard said that he's not going to enforce it, and he's not going to do that." And I was like, "Oh, that's
weird."
Like, yeah, all right, well, let me know, you know, what happens."
Yeah.
And
Well, that's and like the shipyard is kind of a different case because they're not all technically government employees.
Not
A lot of
all
them
of
are
them.
like working for private contractors who are
Some of
hired by
them.
the federal. Yeah,
Some of
some of the shops, right?
yes,
It's a weird deal. There's so many different employment statuses there.
Yes, but it's also, I mean, as far as the federal directive, it's anybody who, even if you're a contractor for the federal government, you're covered by it too. So,
Everybody.
yeah, and so when I talked to him last week, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, we have to get vaccinated." I was like, "Oh, that's so
look at
weird!
that.
Like, that's so weird, you know." And when I was getting my haircut, I was talking to Paul about it, and I was like, "You know, like I obviously can't blame them because I do, but I don't." It's like, but like I was surprised when I heard that because I'm like, well, you're the head of the shipyard, one of the biggest ones in the country. I don't really see you telling the federal government to go fuck yourself when they pay you $250,000 a year, probably at least, to do, you know, to do your job. Like, so why? I just don't see it, a world where you're like, oh no, I don't want my job anymore.
Yeah.
So just fuck it.
Fuck it. We're just gonna make it, and that's most people's attitudes,
Yeah.
which is highly unfortunate.
Yeah, and like I said, I can understand more somebody in a lower position, you know, somebody who's trying to provide for their family or some shit like that. You're at a head position and you're like, I just don't want to do that. I think you should do that. I'm not going to say that you're a piece of shit because I know I'm trying to give people grace and not judge anyone in like this scenario, but I feel that if you are of the means to do it, then you should do it. And I don't know. I'm not trying to tell anyone what
Like
to
do it as in stand up against it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't believe in it, if you don't believe in it,
Yep.
and you're in a position to stand up for yourself, then I think you should do it.
And you know, what? I've had such a. I used to feel that way about. I used to feel bad about the people that were put in that impossible position and like, you know, what stance do they take? You know, they got a family to look out for. They got this, that, and the other thing. But I've become so much more cut and dry on it now. If you are not, nobody's asking you to go into war, to jump into the trenches, to pick up a rifle and start fighting a guerrilla, you know, civil war or anything like that. No, we're asking you to stand on principle for what you believe and not kowtow and bow down to just the blatant stripping of your liberties.
Right.
And if you think that it's okay because you're going to try to be protecting, you know, you're trying to make sure your family's fed and all this stuff, well, you give them your liberties now. What's going to come down next? I mean, if it's not this, how would I phrase this? You bend down for the vax mandates now. Okay. And you're going to try to justify it by saying, you know, I got to feed my family, this, that, and the other thing. Well, then after after the precedent has been set that they can strip whatever liberties they want under the auspices of Title 42, public health, whatever they want to call it, the next time they want to strip some more liberties from you for the greater good, you have nothing to stand on because you've already bowed down to them and given up your liberties to them. It's time for people to stand on principle now. Now is the time. Stand up, push back, leave your fucking job, make the sacrifices that are absolutely required from you, and stand on principle. Otherwise, this is going to keep happening.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at now. I don't have any sympathy for people that are like, well, I have to get it, otherwise I'll lose my job. Well, then lose your fucking job and then go somewhere else where they don't require that. It is a difficult decision to make. It is not an impossible decision to make. It's massive sacrifices must be made in the name of liberty at this point. And if you bend the knee and just do whatever you're told, you don't. The old Benjamin Franklin quote, what is that? Those who sacrifice liberty for a little bit of freedom or safety deserve neither safety nor liberty. We're there. And I'm done with this stuff. I am personally ready to make that decision if it came down to it. I think we talked about that this week. And I'm done giving people that grace in this particular situation. Did anybody, I'm trying to find like another analogy for when people had to make the ultimate sacrifices and, picked up stakes, left their childhood home where their family was raised, where their grandparents were from, blah, 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 and had to go seek a better fortune somewhere else in the country. Think like Great Depression era or something like that.
Right.
You could have stayed where you were at and, suffered the consequences, or you picked up. They just put it on the speaker. Fuck it. What are we doing here? But yeah, it's just I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. People need to stand up and push back. And as the vax mandates come into play, you need to make that decision and decide whether or not you're okay with just doing what you're told, or pack up and go somewhere else, man. I understand it's going to be difficult, but you have to do it at some point.
Yeah.
You have to. William Wallace, personally, I'm glad it's not required for my current job. Yeah, me too. Me too,
yes,
buddy.
I agree. And that's kind of, I've been trying to remind myself of my privilege. Just that I live or I exist in a job where that is extremely unlikely that it would ever happen.
It's not like a real factor for you.
It's not something that I have even considered might be a thing in my office. I just don't see it happening. So I try and remind myself of that I don't exist in that world. So it's
like both of us too. We never had to deal with, like, when the lockdowns and stuff came in, like, we never really missed any work.
Right.
We closed our business, not even really closed our business, but we cut a portion of our business for about 2 weeks.
I'm gonna put this in Dropbox.
But it's not like we didn't stop working, which was nice, and neither did you. So we were very fortunate in that regard, because there's people today that still aren't working.
Right.
They've been out of the job for more than 20 months at this point. And obviously I don't know if we'll get in, I'm sure we'll get into it with Larry, but the jobs report that came out this last month was even worse than last month.
Let me ask you about this real quick, because we were kind of talking to Larry about it. The ferries, right? We live in an area, for anybody who's unfamiliar, it's perfectly understandable if you are, we live in the Puget Sound. Right? Which is just a fuckery of different channels and inlets and stuff that dips into the state in a whole bunch of different ways. And so there's obviously a lot of water. I'm putting it in the Dropbox because
just not coming up.
It's just too big to go through Signal. Signal's telling me to go fuck myself. So, like I said, it's a couple minutes long, so Signal
that would make sense.
But so there are a lot of ferries in this area, ferry boats.
Ferry boats. Ferry.
We also live in Washington, so there's a lot. I'm not even.
Oh, buddy. There it is.
But I know that's. People are like, oh, did you mean this or this? One day, when people are watching this video,
they'll get you.
It's in the comments now in like a different time stream.
Yep, there you go.
Later in time. So
the Hadron Collider did fire, and now we're multiple timelines.
Exactly. So I'm glad you understand. There's a lot of ferry boats in that area, and there's been a lot of people use them to commute, especially to Seattle, a lot of different surrounding areas and stuff like that. And there's been an immense amount of ferry shutdowns and closures and delays. And like I said, there was one boat out of Kingston yesterday, and the Kingston-Edmonds ferry is like a very popular ferry, very popular, very crowded as it is. The lines up the streets, and shit like that.
Oh, yeah, miles of traffic backed up.
Yes.
Trying to get on this ferry.
There literally are signs starting probably a mile or two from the town of Kingston that say, like, no ferry traffic, or ferry traffic only right here.
Yep.
That's like, if the line is this long, you're allowed to park your car on the side of the road to wait for the ferry line, because it does happen.
Yeah, 3-4 hour ferry delays, like in the summertime particularly.
On the reader boards on the highways. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. And now these are being cut back even further. And the ferry, historically, is like a pretty good job in regards to like pay and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's part of a union, I believe.
It's a very strong union.
Yes. It's a shitty job in the way that it's difficult to work, and you have to do very hard work until you've been there for a while, and then you can stand there and maybe be a counter or something. But you gotta put your work in, and it's very cold, and you're down by the water, and so it sucks a lot of the time. And very early hours and late hours and shit like that, because I think the last ferry out of Seattle is like 1 o'clock, 12:30, something like that. Start at like 4 or 5. So it's a difficult job, but it also pays very well. But there's the answer that is being given on local news, on the radio, and on television is staffing shortages.
Staffing
Like, it's
shortages.
Staffing shortages. We don't
Yeah.
have enough staff.
Why?
You know,
Why?
Which the local garbage companies, right? Waste management, like people's recycling in particular, it hasn't been picked up in a long time because they can't find drivers. The same deal with that. Like, it's something that confuses me that when I was growing up, like being a garbage truck driver, you're being
Super
a garbage,
legit.
it's a good job. Like, you're
Yeah.
making good money, and you're done. You start early, you're done early, and you're literally done by like 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You go home, sleep.
Kind of like
and
a
it's still-
mailman, you know?
Yes.
Up early, out early.
So there's just all these jobs that aren't even like Burger King, or jobs that people are traditionally complaining about, you know,
Yeah.
they're traditionally good jobs that are not being filled.
Yeah, with
And-
big unions, you know, like in the ferries.
Yes.
Those are all state employees. They
Yes.
the state Department of Transportation.
And so I'm curious as to why that is, you know. I don't know if COVID is a factor, like if I don't know. Like,
No.
I don't know. Is
I
it
did. I think we talked about it before, but I got that flyer from Waste Management a couple weeks ago,
that they're
maybe a month
hiring,
ago,
right?
that they apologize for the delays in the recycling pickup because the vast majority of the recycling that they pick up
Right.
gets sent overseas
Right.
to China to be recycled essentially and then shipped back, and they were having problems with essentially the supply train at that point, shipping and whatnot. But
Truck drivers, that's another one. There's
It's a
like
massive
very
one.
difficult, very difficult
Yeah.
to find truck drivers right now, which
Yep.
is the same deal traditionally.
which causes shortages everywhere because everything is delivered by truck essentially at this point.
Example, we just waited 3 months for a shipment of material.
3 months?
3 months.
Oh
That
man.
was sitting in the port for almost 6 weeks,
Yep.
waiting to be picked up. Just not enough drivers to deliver our shit. Because, you know, it's got
That
to
would make
take all
sense.
pallets, so it's got to come in a big truck. Big truck can't just go in a box truck or something.
Oh,
It has
yeah.
to go in like a big semi truck. Yeah, so 6 weeks. 6 weeks we waited for a shipment of material.
That's
And
insane.
the stack at work is now, I mean, it's literally the largest I've ever seen it.
Wow.
The biggest I've ever seen it in 7 years. And that's part of the reason, like, we
I've
had
seen some big stacks there too, but that's
yeah,
saying
it's-
something.
It's quite literally this tall on the stable side. It's-
Jeez.
Yeah, no, it's something else. So it's a very weird deal. Yeah, and I'm just having a hard time understanding why it is that these jobs are not being filled. Right?
Yeah.
The Burger King jobs, the shitty jobs,
You can understand.
I understand why people don't want that job, especially if you had it before. You could be being told by your politicians, especially in this state or on the East Coast, you know, you are almost leveraging for higher wages at this point the longer you choose to not work.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it. I understand the game that's being played here with, like, I don't know what we'll call it, like low skilled labor, right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I understand the game that's being played there. As far as these jobs, like I said, they're traditionally well paying jobs, and especially if you live by yourself, you're gonna live a good life.
Oh yeah.
If you
You're
are
set, man. You got the benefits packages are
Yes.
just to die for.
So I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, what is going on?
I don't understand.
And unfortunately, there's no way to really
I don't
determine
have a
that
solution.
because
I don't. It's a question I'm posing to the world because
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand it.
really the only people that would know would be like the people that do the hiring process at, say, Waste Management or the
Yes.
ferry service to find out, like, you know, hey, we have job offers out there, but nobody, you know, we're doing interviews, but nobody's taking the jobs. Here's why, or vice versa. Because other than that,
Yes.
all the normal people are going to see at the end of the day is just a lack of service from lack of labor.
Yes. They
And
were talking about it on
it's
Cairo
weird.
on my way here, and they were saying, excuse me, they have workers in the pipeline, excuse me, that will, you know, by next month they should have, like, these shortages figured out. But it sounds like it's similar to when we were listening to the public comments on the Board of Health, and there was one of the people that came on that said he was a nurse, right?
Yeah.
And when I've been talking about this, he claimed he was a nurse, not because I don't believe him, but because it was over the phone and I don't have any way to corroborate that information.
Yeah.
But he claimed that he was a nurse that worked at St. Michael's, which is a local hospital.
Yeah.
And it's a very big hospital. A lot of people go there. They do a lot of big shit there. And they just added a whole new portion to it. It's a big deal, St. Michael's, right? It's a whole jam. So
That's the one in Silverdale? The new one?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so he said that he worked at St. Michael's. He said the issue they were having in the hospitals was not an influx of patients, but a lack of staffing.
Yeah.
And he said the lack of staffing started in the very beginning of COVID because they relied so heavily on roving doctors, traveling doctors, right? One doctor that would spend their week at 3 hospitals, 2 days here, 2 days here, 3 days here. And it's in different here and then in Bellevue and then fucking wherever, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how they're spending their time. And so when you have 3 hospitals that are all sharing one doctor and they all get slammed with COVID, you have to pick where you're going to go. You can't spend a whole week treating COVID patients at all 3 hospitals. You know what I'm saying? And so they said they had this issue from the beginning. It is now, and it has gotten worse and better and worse and better as COVID has gotten worse and better. It's made its peaks. But now we're seeing nurses and healthcare workers losing their jobs. And so there is a sustainment almost where even though COVID is getting worse, we're still hearing how the numbers and the hospital numbers are crazy, you know, and it's so difficult to find a bed and stuff like that. And so that's kind of what I'm wondering is if on that particular portion, we're just hitting a crossover point of like, well, we already had kind of questionable staffing policies before where we were spread thin, so we were doing what we had to do and shared doctors, but now we're firing a bunch of people, and so we're just gonna we're gonna hit a plateau of like, well, we're just kind of all fucked because we cut a bunch of our staff. You know, I mean, in some places it's a minimal numbers. Some places it's like 1%, right? And that's what we've heard, especially in airlines and things like that. But in some hospitals it's like 1%. But in like New York City, thousands and thousands of workers that I actually have a clip for that.
Hot dog.
Yep, I actually have a clip for that. Thousands of workers in the hospital that are going to lose their jobs, and they don't have any way to fill it. And so the interim governor or the mayor of New York City, Governor of New York, of New York's like, oh, well, I'm going to sign a bill so that people who just retired can come in and treat COVID patients, and people whose licenses just expired can treat COVID patients. And we're going to bring in the National Guard, and we're going to do this, and bring in people from out of state. And so it's just a very weird.
Oh man.
Very weird.
It doesn't.
You know.
It doesn't make any sense. And actually, I was going to bring this up later on today when we get into the main show when we're talking about the budgeting bills and stuff like that, because a portion of that money, as we'll go over later, a portion of that money is essentially unused COVID relief money that they're repurposing now for like infrastructure and shit. I'm like, well, if there's doctor and nursing shortages in the healthcare facilities all throughout the country, and you obviously can't escape it because it's on the news every fucking day now.
Right.
It's in every article talking about COVID all the time. Why are we giving back that money that was not spent for that particular purpose to make sure that we can have hospital staff, that we can have the field hospitals, we can have the overflow facilities to handle all the COVID patients so that we don't burn out and overwhelm the healthcare system? We quit doing that all of a sudden. It's like, oh, hey, we declared, we almost declared, success against the pandemic, so we're just not going to help anymore. No more government intervention anymore. No more National Guard field hospitals. No nothing. It's just get the vaccine or you're fired, and we'll make the situation worse.
And we expect,
and then we can blame the unvaxxed. Yeah, we expect zero
cases,
COVID.
We expect COVID zero at all times, which is an unrealistic. That's what this clip.
It's so unreal.
Which is up now. Is in the Dropbox. So the one from Rising is in the Dropbox, or Breaking Points is in the Dropbox, and then the one about the nurses is coming through on Signal.
Okay.
So because I wanted to be really complicated about this,
I
wanted to make it as difficult as possible. But yeah, so that's something that's been on my mind a lot lately. Just these jobs, like I said, that are traditionally really fairly good jobs that are being left unfilled, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah,
and I
it doesn't seem to be a good reason.
No, with the nurses, right? We know anecdotally of cases of people who are able to start jobs as nurses but are being denied because they won't get the vaccine.
Yes.
And so I've got to imagine that that's part of it, because while it's too early for people on the ferries to have lost their jobs because they didn't get the vaccine, they're probably only hiring people who are vaccinated. That's conjecture. I'm saying that right now. I don't know that. I'm assuming that because that's like the policy we're here now. Again, on the way here on Cairo, the cases that are being brought up from firefighters, this one in particular I heard about, got a medical exemption from getting the vaccine, but his accommodation was declined because he works with the public, and it's not safe because he doesn't have the COVID vaccine. He could be giving COVID to other people. So he was fired for being a firefighter. So that's one of the active lawsuits against Governor Inslee. And they're like, oh, but Governor Inslee's been sued like 30 times since COVID started, and he's won every single lawsuit that's challenged his executive power. Like, fuck this state.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? There's no limits. There's just no limits at all. He can do anything that he wants. You're going to have 30 challenges, and you're telling me there isn't one. Not one that stands up. All of these things are perfectly within his purview, and no one gives a fuck about that? That's crazy.
It's because he has the emergency authority during the time of, crisis and all this stuff, and he continues to redeclare the emergency. And so he can write the law that is against the law, that overrules the current law, so that he can't be sued over it because his mandate takes precedent at this point.
And then the courts uphold it.
Yes.
And then the fucking courts uphold it.
Welcome to dictatorship, guys. That's what that's called.
It's insane.
It doesn't always look like Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi or Hitler. No, this is a dictatorship at this point. That's what that is.
I'm trying to... I got to reframe it for myself all the time. And I'm trying to do it for other people in very subtle ways, because as soon as you start talking about it like that, you sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Yes.
Right? But I really am
Can't say the D word.
I'm really trying to impress upon people, like, this country is not different. We are not special. Nope. There isn't a thing. If you think just for a few minutes when we were kids, oh, that could never happen here. That would never. Why? Because this is America. That would never happen here.
Because it's America.
There isn't a good reason why nothing like that would happen here. There isn't. There is nothing that stops those things from happening here, other than just it hasn't yet.
Yep.
We are lucky that it hasn't yet. We have thus far been the exception. We are lucky to have been that.
The only thing
I don't get it, you know?
The only thing that kept us essentially immune to that up until this point is that the culture and the society at whole in America didn't believe in it.
Yes.
And anything that came close to that, we pushed away pretty severely because of what we had seen and what we had all gone through as a nation at the time. And it was built into the foundation of society. But we don't have that anymore.
Too scared.
And so the government is free and open to do whatever they want and seize as much power as they want. And if the last 20 months have not made that crystal fucking clear, I don't know what does. So let's see. Let's watch this. Let's watch this thing here.
Rising. I said it's a few minutes long, so we'll sit here, we'll enjoy it together, we'll calm down.
Yeah, right.
Offie and I are going to take a shot of BSB.
Yeah.
And so in this, they're going to play the Fauci clip. They're going to talk about the Fauci clip. And said in the beginning, I'm really fucking with what Sagar is saying, and then we'll talk about it in the end, kind of break it down a little bit. That it tips off from this point of like, oh, this is just all bad here.
This is just all bad. It's all bad all the way down. All right, let's see how we do here. Give us a shout if something is broken audio-wise. Let's give it a shot here. I hear it. Look at my hair now. Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't look like it worked. Let's do that one again, guys. Here we go. Yeah, dude, my crazy hair, Jordan, that was wild. I was super excited about that. Oh, you know what it was? I hit the wrong key to switch over. See, we got the cool new producer pad, and I'm not used to doing it yet. All right, let's try this again. Hit the magic button. Boom.
Could. Dr. Fauci making news, making headlines with some very eyebrow-raising comments. First of all, strange question, speaking of the media saying, Dr. Fauci, can people gather for Christmas? Well, hold on a second. It's October. Also, we have this vaccine. You might have heard of it. Why are we even asking this question? So she asked the question, tease it up for the good doctor. Here's what he had to say.
We can gather for Christmas, or it's just too soon to tell?
You know, Margaret, it's just too soon to tell. We've just got to concentrating on continuing to get those numbers down and not try to jump ahead by weeks or months and say what we're going to do at a particular time. Let's focus like a laser on continuing to get those cases down. And we can do it by people getting vaccinated, and also in the situation where boosters are appropriate to get people boosted, because we know that they can help greatly in diminishing infection and diminishing advanced disease, the kinds of data that are now accumulating in real time.
too soon to tell. Last time I checked, it's not December 2020, it's December 2021. And you might actually ask, what was the point of getting the vaccine? And as you point to, as actually even alludes to, even if, so let's say you're worried about the elderly, well, they can get a booster shot if they want to, and then they have, you know, whatever, 90-something percent protection, especially already 100% protection against hospitalization and death, and, or sorry, 99.99. And then whenever it comes to protection from actually getting it, the booster at least, you know, seems to be working in some cases for the elderly, and that's if you're elderly. For everybody else, if you're vaccinated, you pretty much don't have to worry. I just think that if you look at this level of hysteria and this level of control here where Fauci is pushing for, you get to a point where COVID-0 is the de facto policy of the U.S. And that is not possible, people. Workable. It is an endemic disease at this point. You know, Fauci himself actually, in an interview a day before, said something similar. They said, well, Dr. Fauci, what about the idea that COVID is endemic? And he said, I simply will not accept this idea that just getting COVID for some people is the norm. Now, okay, his job is to be, you know, public health, disease, or whatever. But his job is to advise the president. He's not actually supposed to be running the policy of the government. The problem, I think, the biggest problem, in my opinion, for the Biden administration has been that these public health people have made COVID-0 now the de facto policy of the government. You can't have that possible. We don't have a flu zero policy. And yes, I know that that sounds like Trumpian or whatever, but here is the truth. With vaccines, they are much more analogous now. It is not, you know, nuking our elderly people and people who are obese. You have a protection. If you don't want it, okay, you know, that's on you. And now there are public health measures in place in order to try and incentivize that to as much as possible. But at a certain point, we just have to say, we have the policies in place. We push it as far as we possibly can. Everybody's got the protection if they want to have the protection. And if you get COVID, okay, you know what happened to me, breakthrough case, sick for a couple of days. I'm not going to lie, it definitely did suck, but it's over now. And that's just simply going to be the reality for a lot of people in our society. I just think that this type of December of 2021 saying that you may not be able to gather for Christmas is total insanity.
I mean, there's a couple things here. First of all, I was surprised by the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that. I would never even ask that. Right. And then there's a really simple answer. The answer is if your adults are vaccinated, then yeah, you're good. You're good.
And if you're really worried, go get a booster shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. Like that, we already know that. We know how the vaccines work. We know they're effective. I mean, sure, anything crazy could happen. There could be a new variant that, it jumps the vaccine. No, as far as we know, right now, the vaccines work. And if you're vaccinated, don't worry about it. You're good to go, right? I mean, there's minor risk in so many things that we undertake. But if gathering as a family at the holidays is important to you and you're vaccinated, do it. You're good to go. So it's a really simple, straightforward answer. And the other thing that I think this exposes is who's going to listen? I mean, no one's going to listen to this guy.
That's the worst problem.
This is so disconnected from the reality of how people living outside of a small handful who are really into their pandemic era restrictions and have really embraced this and have the Fauci signs in their lawn and whatever. That's a pretty small percentage of the population ultimately. Yeah, most of the population is not living in a way where they were even questioning, should we get together at Christmas time? Should we gather for Thanksgiving if we're all vaccinated? And so it's just, you know, the more disconnected they get from how people are actually living their lives and thinking about this disease at this point, the less credibility they're ultimately going to have. And then I do think that there, as you were pointing to, there's a connection here with the Biden administration hasn't made really clear what their goal is.
Yeah, what is the policy?
So that allows Fauci and other public health officials to sort of freelance and assert for themselves what they think the goal.
All right, so I think we have
echoey audio.
Yeah, I ran into this last night. Part of the reason that I was up till like 1:30 last night. Every time I go to the desktop display on the mics, we get some pretty bad echo. And nothing's changed setting-wise, but for some reason it's happening. So we'll just have to kind of keep our comments down in between our clips.
Is it better now, everyone?
Yes. Is it good now?
Let us know.
If it's not. I'm gonna
Yes.
lose it.
So the first thing that was interesting about it, right, is like I said, the hard nosedive it takes from, and I realize that sounds Trumpian and everything. To say say that COVID will never go away is not a Trumpian ideology.
No.
That seems at this point like the most obvious reality that we could accept. That this will likely never go away again. It's been 2 years now, and we're looking at, we had 3 variants to start with, right? Or 3 strains, right?
Yeah.
Because you had, well, like the European strain and the Asian strain, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we had the shit, and that's why East Coast got it so bad at first, because theirs,
That was like the
theoretically,
European strain, right?
theoretically, that the shit they got on the East Coast had come the long way across the globe. And so it had mutated a little bit and changed a little bit, and then it had come to the East Coast, whereas on the West Coast it came straight from Asia to
Yeah.
us, and so it changed a little bit less.
Yeah. And
so,
I think originally, before they had decided that calling the variants by their essentially their country, their nation of origin or region of origin,
racist.
before that became racist, I believe the Delta variant was the Indian variant, if I recall.
So,
Do you remember that correctly? Maybe, because
yeah,
that
I
one
know there was
it
one
seemed to
from,
be
like-
more virulent but less deadly. Something like
yes,
that.
And that seems to be how it's going, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm hearing more now, is that the variants seem to be, as they go on, getting more and more transmissible,
Yep.
less and less deadly.
Which is very standard for transmissible viruses like that, because they
Yes.
evolve to be better at what they do, to become more infectious, less deadly, so
The
they
flu.
can. Yeah,
The flu is a
Yep.
great example. People die from the flu.
the
not
common
as,
cold is
Not
perfect.
as many people as died from the Spanish flu. Because from what I understand, that the flu that we have now is like an existing strain from the Spanish flu from 1920 or whatever, right? And so it's just continued to change and change and adapt and adapt and adapt over time. And so that seems to be what we're looking at now. So yeah, the odd qualification of, I know this sounds Trumpian, and then Crystal qualifying every statement after that with, if you're vaccinated, if you're vaccinated, if you're vaccinated. Or, this is America, make your own fucking decisions. If you want to go and meet with your family, go and meet with your family. This isn't Australia. This isn't any France. This isn't any
yet.
other country in which they're locking you in your, China, where they're welding you inside your homes in the early days of COVID, right?
Oh man.
If you want to go to your family's house for Christmas, go to your family's house for Christmas.
Yep.
If they're going to do some weird shit, ask you to like wear a mask and stuff like that, and you're already not on that, don't do it. Don't go. This is, talked about it, and then this is the time where I have easier in like interpersonal relationships. And I'm not sure why that is. That's a personal deal. I'm still trying to figure out why I have an easier time like cutting those things off. It's an easier decision for me to make, where if you as a person in my life are exhibiting values that I don't agree with, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to associate with this anymore. And not like, I know, just so people aren't like, oh, that's really shitty, but not like one thing, like, oh, I don't like the way that guy eats, you know, or like whatever. But I know if you are
Moral
expressing,
foundational values.
core values that don't vibe with me, I'm just not going to hang out with you anymore. I'm just not going to kick with you. I don't have a problem doing that, you know? And COVID has, this is going to sound weird, but like provided a lot of opportunity for that. You know, it showed a lot of people's very true colors. So it's been easier and easier to see where people are really sitting at. So it's easier to make decisions like that.
Yeah.
And
unfortunately, you've seen a lot of people's values and morals shift away from where you thought they were at one point. I have I know a guy pretty close to me who kind of going through the same deal. Their family was supposed to get together for one of the big holidays coming up. I can't remember if it was Thanksgiving and Christmas or whatever, but they're having they're all flying in from all over the country and all this, that, and the other thing. But the requirement to go to this family event is you have to be vaccinated. Period. Full stop.
which is just crazy.
And so this person I know is not vaccinated, doesn't plan on being vaccinated, and has started a massive turmoil within the family now.
Yeah.
And it's tearing the family apart because, you know, and I told him my piece of advice was essentially probably right along yours. I said, if that's the case, if that's what they're doing and they want to ostracize you, just be like, all right, cool, then I just won't come.
Fuck 'em.
You guys have a good time. I'm out. Don't worry about me.
I'm
I'm obviously not welcome in this family anymore.
I have heard whispers.
They're from Texas too, which is weird,
That is weird.
right?
I have heard whispers at work from people talking about their friends and stuff like that of like particular friends in their group saying, like, I'm not going to invite people to my house who are not vaccinated anymore. So any of my friends who choose to not be vaccinated, you're just not going to get invited to the shit that we do.
Oh, man.
The fuck? You're just going to draw a line like that? Like, y'all motherfuckers just can't come because you won't get vaccinated. That's crazy. Like, that's a crazy thing to do, you know?
It's so bad.
And
it's
I'm definitely,
so bad.
I'm not, just to clarify, because we've said it 1,000 times before, I'm not anti-vaccine. Neither of us are anti-vaccine. So it's not like I'm like, oh, well, if you're getting the vaccine, then you fucking can't come to my house. Like, that's not, you know? When we had the draft, like, it was whatever. I wasn't going to ask anybody about anything. I told you I was prepared to make it a no-COVID zone because there were so many different political ideologies that I knew were going to be there that I was like, we're just not going to talk about it. Because I don't want anyone to be upset. I don't want to fucking trigger anybody. I don't want anyone to be, you know, feeling any type of raw because someone said something that they don't agree with about COVID or regulations or anything, you know? In our league, there are people who are very, very, very conservative, and there are people who are very, very, very far to the left. The person I played last week, this is so awesome. I have no problem sharing this. The person I played last week, their picture in the league, whether you know it or not, is a picture of Donald Trump in a hat with on the phone, and it says everything woke turns to shit. And their name, you almost wouldn't realize it if you're not paying attention. Their name is the Megalodon.
Oh!
It looks like it's the Megalodon.
Yeah.
It's the Megalodon.
Interesting.
So, it's a no-COVID zone in the league of $840 because
and that was great.
Dangerous.
Because we had... You know, we did the draft.
Was small, so that wasn't it.
Yeah, and it worked because we had multiple ways to do it. We had our in-person as well as the distance via the app, and so really, like you said, it was a no-COVID zone. You gave people the personal choice and option to participate in the draft however they wanted
I had
to.
COVID, so
yeah, as it turned out,
I ended up having COVID. It also is interesting. Nobody who attended got COVID.
Nope.
Nobody, and I hugged because I didn't know yet. I
got tested afterwards, and I was legit.
Yeah, but yeah, I hugged everybody who we were there with, and we were all together underneath the pop-up thing and eating food together. And so
almost as if you
shared joints. Bro, I shared joints. I just thought about that. We shared joints with people there. I shared joints with motherfuckers, and I had COVID, and nobody got COVID. What is going on here?
What is going on here?
That's anecdotal, but I literally just thought of that. I literally just considered it. I shared joints with everybody who was there, other than Isaiah. Isaiah's the only person who doesn't smoke there. Shared joints with everybody at that party.
I think I even took a hit at that.
At first I was like, oh, I did, I just hugged everybody, but we were outside. It wasn't a big deal. I shared joints with everybody. No one got COVID.
Interesting. Wonder how many droplets per million are on it.
Yeah, I wonder what my viral load was because I felt sick as shit. So I wonder. I don't know. That's very interesting, man.
Oh my God.
That's very weird.
You brought up something that I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
During the pre-show before we end this. And actually, we've got about.
That's so weird.
Larry's talking about 1:45, I think, our time.
Cool.
So we could keep going if we wanted to.
Yeah, we'll see what's
up. But I went ahead. There's been a lot of talk recently over the last couple of weeks about like the changing of Merriam-Webster's dictionary of what anti-vaxxer means, right?
Okay.
Have you heard about this at all? It's been going around social medias and whatever. Well, a couple stories I found talking about how they shifted it, this, that, and the other thing to include, people that also, that are against vaccinations and against laws mandating vaccinations, right? And I thought that was kind of weird, so I did a little research in the Wayback Machine, also known as archive.org on the internet.
All right.
And if you've never used it, it's pretty fantastic. Basically, you just Google Wayback Machine on Google, and go to the link that's archive.org, I believe.
And it's shit that it's not on the internet anymore?
Or things that have changed. It basically has timestamps of whenever a website has changed. And so you plug in the HTML, the URL, and it'll show you all the changes that have been made since they created that page. So I went back. Yeah, so I went back to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Oh, yeah, if you don't know about the Wayback Machine, especially when you're talking about contemporary news articles, that's the jam.
How is that still on the internet? How is the government not like, no, sir, you can't do that because I don't know, freedom of speech or something. People
Right.
are allowed to change what they want to say.
Exactly.
That's fucking weird.
So there it is. You can see here the Wayback Machine.
Holy shit.
And
That
it
just
shows you the
blew my
little
mind.
doc. And here's the current one, right, from the actual Merriam-Webster. So I went
Okay.
back, and this is the original post they did when they added anti-vaxxer as a noun to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary.
What's the date on this?
This is, I believe, November 25th, 2018.
This is blowing my mind right now.
So, definition of anti-vaxxer when they first
Okay.
added it. Noun, a person who opposes vaccinations or laws that mandate vaccinations.
Okay.
Right? Now you go to the current one. It is a person who opposes the use of vaccinations or regulations mandating vaccination. So the Merriam-Webster's definition did indeed change, but the overall context of it does not.
Or
They changed
laws
like
that
laws to
mandate.
regulations, and people
Which
who
seems like it probably
oppose-
fits better because nothing that's happening now is a law. It's all being done under different health regulations,
Yeah.
executive orders, things like that. So
Yep.
it probably fits better.
And then they added the
said, well,
use of
He
vaccinations
said,
instead
well,
of
he will
just
not get the
vaccinations.
COVID-19 vaccine. Wait, go back to that.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, he said, well, he will not get the COVID-19 vaccine. He is not an anti-vaxxer against all vaccinations.
So when you
awesome.
said earlier that you're not an anti-vax, I said, actually, you are now.
Apparently.
Congratulations, and so am I. I did not know.
That's
I mean, we argued a couple years ago for show after show,
Yes.
hour after hour
Yes.
about, advocating for vaccinations.
Yeah, it was a whole string.
It was a whole string of things because there was
kids
all
were
the
getting measles in
Yeah.
Washington, like in some fucking podunk town somewhere.
Yep.
We were like, what the fuck? These guys are backwards as shit.
exactly, and yeah, but now we're anti-vaxxers. So even though we support all vaccinations, I think other than this current one and only the implementation of the requirement, I think, is really our only opposition to it.
Yes.
We have personal things that we have, and other than that, I don't care what you do. I would suggest that you consult your doctor before going through like a drive-through, stick your arm out the window type of deal. But
Yeah,
go to
'cause
town, man. I think it's go to town.
I've seen now, I think, 5 different European countries, 3 that have stopped doing the Moderna vaccine
Yes.
for young men, and 2 that have recommended against it.
Yep. Yeah, multiple countries now. in
For
Europe.
like myocarditis,
Yeah.
heart inflammation, which is interesting because Project Veritas, I'm sure they'll come up with
Hey-o.
this today. We're just taking off of YouTube now.
They just got
Project
taken off.
Veritas- No, I said us.
Oh,
for
word.
bringing
Yeah.
them up.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
It's been real, guys.
One of the first ones they did in this latest series is about a federally run HHS hospital in which that whistleblower said they are vastly underreporting the side effects they are seeing from the COVID-19 vaccine, specifically in young men, or particularly in young men. And they don't report it, and then they have to send them out of the hospital because they don't have the equipment to deal with that particular thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they just send them out, and they're not the ones that report it, and then they just show up at the hospital with heart inflammation. Not due to the COVID-19 vaccine, it's just heart inflammation.
Interesting. Doesn't surprise me at all. Makes me want to drink.
Drink to
Cheers,
that.
buddy.
Yep.
Here's the BSB. Yeah, buddy. I always forget that that's
nice.
got that extra cinnamon kick up front. Oh. So one other little piece of
Yeah, we have a clip too, the signal clip.
oh, yep, yeah. Actually, why don't we run through that real
Yeah,
quick?
and this is about the nurses in New York City, because there's about to be several thousand, or there was several thousand that were fired. So that's what this clip is from. We will keep our mouths shut so that you don't hear us echo, and then we'll talk about the clip afterwards.
Yee. Well, no, the infinite abyss.
Thank you, Jen. In New York State, there's an anticipated shortage of healthcare workers due to tens of thousands of them failing to comply with the strict state vaccine mandates. I'm wondering if the Biden administration is learning anything from these New York mandates as it's drawing up its own federal version of them. And if there's any surprise by the number of people who haven't complied and haven't been vaccinated.
So as it relates to New York, one, we are tracking that a number of states, New York is one of them, are beginning to implement, as they're beginning to implement requirements, they're taking steps to work with healthcare systems to ensure that they have alternatives that they can backfill as needed. And that certainly is something we support, that some states like New York are doing. I would note that when this decision writ large was made, and this is the reason we did it on a federal level, right? It was because healthcare workers who've been on the front lines of this pandemic for a year and a half now were feeling at risk for their health, for their lives, for their children's lives, and also it was creating a great deal, not a bit of a lesser concern, but one for hospital associations for disruptions of workers, right? People were having to take off sick time, and even worse, of course. So this was a step that was taken in order to address that, to create certainty for these healthcare workers and also these systems. We have seen in a number of places around the country, the Methodist Hospital in Houston, which was one of the first organizations to implement a vaccine requirement, that they lost only 153 out of 25,000 employees. That means of the implementation of the vaccine mandate, I should say. That means less than 1% quit over a vaccine requirement. And new employment data out of Maine showed that only 65 people out of 33,000 healthcare workers quit their jobs over a vaccine requirement. Henry Ford Health System in Detroit went from 68% vaccinated to 98%. So point is, we're seeing in a lot of places that this is working, it's effective, it's creating more certainty and protection in their workforces. There are places where they are contingency planning to ensure they're backfilling. We certainly support that as well. We stay in touch with them about the steps that they're taking, but we still continue to believe that putting in place these mandates for businesses over 100 workers is something that is a positive step for the workforce, for the country, and for a lot of these businesses, as these business leaders can attest to as well.
Is there anything sort of special about the New York rules? I mean, for example, there's not a religious exemption even there that the Biden administration might be looking at and thinking this might be a little bit too strict for what we would want to do nationally. Because it is a much bigger, I mean, to your point, most of those places that you mentioned are having tiny sort of like, amounts of people leaving, but New York seems to be an exception.
Sure. I know that obviously OSHA and as they're working to do the rulemaking that Weija asked about earlier, they're looking at a range of ways to make this as efficient, as clear for businesses as humanly possible. We've talked a little bit about the expectation of an exemption for a religious exemption, which is something certainly they'll look at. And I'm sure they will look at how it's applied to different health systems across the country, as well as businesses and how they have applied it across the country in the private sector where it's already been implemented as well. So they'll look at all of that. Their objective is to make this clear, but I think it's also important to note that in the vast majority of places, it's actually been quite effective. There's been a very, very small percentage of people who have left the workforce as it's been mandated.
Well, that doesn't make any sense at all. That's my favorite thing is when she first started talking about the numbers, right? She was like, oh, yeah, then you had 33 here, you had 64 here, you had 150 here, and then we went from 36% to 99%. Okay. When you're talking about percentages, if you go from, say, 68%, and then the vaccine mandate comes in, anybody that feels forced enough to get the vaccine is going to get it, and then whoever doesn't gets fired. Obviously, your vaccination percentage is going to go from whatever it started close to 100% because you fucking fired everybody that wouldn't get it, or they just left. Who knows if those numbers are correct? Because I would imagine at the end of the day, when somebody decides to leave their job in the healthcare facility, if they ask you why you're going to leave, I would venture a guess that a lot of people that are leaving because they're being required to take the vaccine may or may not say that. They're just saying like, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm just leaving. I have personal reasons. I have this, that, and the other thing. Right. How many people are actually going to go in there and be like, well, I'm actually leaving because I'm being forced to do this.
Right.
So,
well, Joe Biden,
who knows, but
is making the same argument
in
regards to like airlines and stuff like that. Oh, we put the mandates in and they went from 60% to over 90%. So they're working.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you threaten to take people's jobs away, a lot of them will do what you're asking them to do. That does not mean that this is the right thing to do, right?
Yep.
I grow more and more troubled all the time with the narrative of like, well, it's less than 1% of the workers at this place, and this place, and this place. So fuck them.
Yeah.
You know, just fuck them. It doesn't matter. If they get left behind, it doesn't matter. We care about everyone. Medicare for all. Everybody's rights matter. Women's rights. Everyone deserves rights. We need to think of everybody on the planet, globalization, everything. But fuck them. If they're not going to do what we want them to do, then fuck them. And it doesn't matter, you know? And it concerns me, obviously domestically, but also on a larger scale of if they're willing to treat American citizens like this, then how are they qualifying everything else they do throughout the globe? You know what I'm saying? We know what they say here about the implementation of whatever the actual program is in the other country. How do we know there isn't some other weird arbitrary designation of like, well, if you don't do this, then fuck you. That's what you have to do to get into this program.
Yep.
And that's the choice that you have, you know?
Yeah.
Because this is America and we're the ones with the money and this is it. And that just doesn't, first of all, it's hypocritical. It's counter to the arguments they make all the time of no one left behind, you know, everything like that. But it's
GW, no child left
dangerous
behind.
game to play. It's
It
a
is.
dangerous game to play to decide that those people are ostracized now, and you don't get to play anymore. You don't get to be a part of this game because you're not going to play by the rules that we have arbitrarily changed when you're 35 years old.
So I've got a more twisted one for you that I
Oh,
don't know
God.
why I didn't think about this beforehand, but
This is your first
Couple-
attempt to roofie me with the black pill?
no, because I think this will just add on to the, you know, this is just add on to where you're at. But
That's
I started to think about the requirements, right? All these
Yes.
people, you know, we had a story that I actually heard about on Cairo, a Seattle mom that was very against the vaccine, but for whatever reason, I think it was so that her kid can participate in some kind of sport, or she could be on some kind of involved with the school somehow or something like that, was forced to get the vaccine and died afterwards from complications of. And I started to think about this, right? Because there's such a lack of medical and religious exemptions being allowed, even in some
Yes.
places that, you know, you can apply for it and then ultimately you can be denied for whatever reason. There was an article about the J&J vaccine causing blood clots, and it was like, well, it's a very rare case. It's like 7 out of 1 million cases. Okay. But if you are going to mandate that everybody get this,
yeah.
you are telling me now that you're okay with murdering 7 people out of 1 million. Because fuck them.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's
And
worth
how
the
many
risk.
how many people, because we know that these companies aren't liable for this stuff anymore.
one is.
They never have
No
been,
one
and
is.
they won't be. So you're forcing people to get vaccinated against their will, and you are okay with killing any number of people that have an adverse reaction to it because you're not willing to accept the fact that somebody shouldn't get this vaccine for whatever reason.
Yes.
Have you thought about that before?
I'm fairly certain, to add to your point, that part of the last big infrastructure or not infrastructure, but big
Relief
stimulus
package?
package, right? Yeah, relief package. Part of that, there was money set aside to assist families with funerals if their families had died of COVID.
Yeah, it was like
right?
the boosted, similar to what we talked about with VAERS before and stuff like that, adverse reaction fund, so that, you know, if somebody dies getting the flu shot, there's a
Yeah.
fund there to do that. I would certainly imagine they were prepared for that, especially new vaccination, massive scale of implementation. There's going to be a ton of adverse reaction stuff. A ton of people are going to die. Percentage-wise, it's a small number, but still. Yeah, I don't know why I hadn't really thought about that before, but yeah, obviously, if there's no room for anything but a mandate, you're killing people.
Yeah.
In whatever small percentage that is somebody's son, daughter, father, mother, grandparent, child.
Well, and it's also only the percentage of the people that have chosen to get it up until now.
Yeah.
You know? And there's, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but just to keep going down, there's also question about the way that people's deaths are reported. You know, there's been question about that from the very beginning of COVID, of people who died with COVID or from COVID.
Yeah.
Did you have COVID when you died, or did you die because you had COVID?
Yeah.
Those are very different things. You
Very
know?
much.
So we're talking about, like, the conservatives love to, like, oh, you could get hit by a motorcycle or get hit on your motorcycle and then have COVID and they say you died of COVID, you know? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
You know? We don't know.
It might be a hospital or a doctor that's doing that, or it might be widespread, or it might be standard practice, or it might not at all.
There are also, in the same line of thinking, in the same vein, questions of whether or not people are getting the vaccine, having severe side effects, dying from that, and then being reported as, well, they died of natural causes because of this, you know, or, oh, well, he smoked a lot and it's probably because of this, you know. That's very concerning to me, you know, and because of the lack of transparency really in all arenas concerning COVID, I don't have the same benefit. I'm unwilling to give the same benefit of the doubt that I would be traditionally.
Yeah.
You know? Well, you're lying all the time, and you refuse to be transparent about really anything that I ask about. So why would I give you the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah.
I don't have any reason to
One
assume
good reason,
you're telling
please.
the truth because you're continuously lying.
Yep.
You know? So why would I give you the benefit of the doubt? Because you're the government? That seems like the counter to what I should do.
He's like, you're not helping your
based
case.
off of history. Yeah. If anything, history tells me I shouldn't believe you just because you're the government. You know? Probably a bad idea. So why?
Yeah.
Why would
should
I
I
do
trust
any
you?
of
You
this?
are the government.
You're not even transparent about the percentage of people that get COVID after they have the vaccine. Even if it's something crazy, this is a totally made up number, right? Even if it's something crazy, like 40% of people still get COVID, but the same or less people die still. That's fine. We should still know that, you know?
Yeah.
You're almost definitely going to get it, but you're not even going to fucking know it. It's going to be so minimal, you won't even fucking know about it.
Yep.
And
You
that's why
might get lucky and be asymptomatic.
Do you know what I'm saying? And that's why you still have to wear a mask, because you could still have it and we won't know about it. If you are transparent, you win over 1 million more people.
Yeah.
If you tell everybody what you know right now, like this is the actual percentage, right? We're tracking it all the time. This is how many people are actually getting COVID that we're testing, because we're not testing everybody. So of reported cases, this is the amount of people who have COVID that also had the vaccine. This is how likely you are, as far as we know, to get the COVID after you've had the vaccine. That's fine, because of that, there's still this many less people that go to the hospital, this many less people that die. Your chances still are better of not dying or even knowing that you had COVID because you got the vaccine first. How many more people are you going to convince if you are just open about it?
So many.
And that's even on the mask front of because this is the case, we're still going to mask up for a little while until we hit this threshold of most people are good to go, then we're fine.
Yep.
Fucking be honest. Instead, we're going to lie for 2 years straight and say, oh, well, science changes. Science changes. Science changes, you know? Well, you knew this 3 weeks ago, and we've lived under the same guidelines for 3 weeks. When we said, well, isn't this happening now? And shouldn't we maybe do this? You said, no, don't worry about that. No, don't worry about that. You still don't need a mask until next week, in which you should probably all have a mask. But we bought them all because that's what we needed to do, because we needed them as the government, so you're not going to be able to find them now. Good luck, but you should probably have one.
Yep.
Just be fucking honest about it.
Yep.
You know? And we said that on the masking thing. As soon as it switched, so you said when we recorded last week that we didn't need a mask, and now you're saying that we should have them. And we talked about 1,000 times. There was one day, one shining moment to their credit where they said, no, you probably should wear one, but at this time we're telling you not to wear them because we need them, because we don't have the infrastructure in place to make the amount that we need and for you guys to have. There's a shortage and we need what we have, so we're telling you not to buy them. And the next day, it's like, nope, just don't do it. Just don't worry about it. It's not transmissible. You don't need it.
Yep.
Why? Why not just run with that same logic of you probably should have one? We're asking you right now to wait because we need them in the hospitals. The hospital workers need them because they're the most likely to get it right now. So please, God, just wait. In a few weeks, we'll have this figured out. We'll DPA the whole thing, and everyone will be able to get masks.
We'll
you know?
DPA it.
We've been doing this for 3 years now. You know, and we've been paying a real close attention to politics for probably 4.5. You know, longer than me, but real hard, the two of us here, probably 4.5. And I have not heard an even semi-feasible argument over the last 2 years of why this is the way that it should go. Why this was the correct path forward to lie consistently for 2 years. It doesn't make any sense. No one's lives have been saved because the government has chosen to lie about the facts that they had. No one's been saved. Only more people have died. You have caused further mistrust. You have had insurrections and riots happen during the same time and lied about both of them equally. All of these things you've consistently lied about and continued to warp people's trust and abuse people's trust and abuse individuals. And now you stand and beg the American people, why don't you believe me?
Yeah.
Why won't you listen to me?
Why won't you listen to
Why
us?
won't you just get the vaccine that I refuse to be completely transparent about?
Yep. That about sums it up. They wonder why there's so little. This is why the country's falling apart. It's because every single institution, from the head executive all the way down to the civil institutions, have completely lost 100% credibility because they've done nothing but lie and coerce people for the last, I don't even know how long, but it's been very, very apparent for the last 4 or 5 years. It's to the point they've eroded away all trust. I don't understand how anybody can trust in anything the government says anymore without doing their own week-long deep dive into a single statement they say. And you can't keep up with how much bullshit they put out because
No.
Psaki's up there every damn day spewing more bullshit. Spewing it like it's... I'm not going to make an analogy. That was a bad road to go down.
I tried to look up something about the budget reconciliation process earlier this week.
Oh, yeah.
And the first thing that came up was from the White House, and the header is budget reconciliation, an explainer.
An explainer.
An explainer.
That's as good as their fact sheets.
And it was printed, it was, I think, posted maybe in like August. So just when they started doing this.
Yeah.
And it's a blog post. It even says it like blog. Like the White House has a blog that some fucking young staffer, his job it is to write up something like, oh, like we do on fucking Patreon.
Yeah.
Put out for the American people to know. This is the information you should know.
There it is.
Here's the explainer. Here's the explainer for the budget reconciliation package. We're trying to pass $3.5 trillion, but it's all paid for and totally free.
Totally free.
Here's the explainer.
Zero cost to you. I think Nancy Pelosi did the white power sign when she did that. Although she had her little crooked,
Racist.
her little crooked thing like that.
Fucking
But
racist.
man,
Book Boys got a shout out in this book.
Book Boys did.
Book Boys got a shout out.
Hot dog wearing
That
their
the
Hawaiian
Book
shirts.
Boys, no, in this one it said that they were going to wear Nazi shirts and they were going to have Confederate flags and they were going to kill people.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more
So,
about that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Yeah.
So on that note, I think we should wrap up.
Yes.
I think we can probably kick off the main show here in about 10 more
lengthy
minutes.
Pre-show.
Yeah, we just kind of we're kind of moving timing along so we
I
can
got a
better
little
land
delay
with
on
Larry.
Larry.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. We talked about some topics. That's like
yeah.
our COVID updates, Lisa, for us. You know, that's
Yeah,
kind of how it's
I think
going
that was
here.
good.
Washington, shit's getting bad here. It's authoritarian as fuck. People are leaving. People are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah, I want
not
Larry
good.
to move back so bad, but I'm also like, Larry, don't come
Don't
back.
come here.
Don't come here, bro. It's not a good spot.
I told Jordan, almost got emotional the other day. Kind of did get emotional because we were talking about leaving and moving and stuff like that. I said, I appreciate your not wanting to be here. I 1,000% appreciate it.
Yeah.
I said, I battle with it all the time. I said, I also said, I don't know why this is. I said, I can really, the easiest thing I'm going to chalk it up is just like being a man. I said, it's the easiest thing I can chalk it up to. I said, I have a feeling inside of me that I don't want to go. I do not. I want to defend the place that I have called home my entire life.
Yep.
So that it matters to me. It matters to me that people here understand what freedom is. It matters to me that people understand what liberty is, and that the regime we're living under is authoritarian, and they are limiting your ability to be as free as possible.
Yep.
And you can maintain all these ideologies and all of these policies and everything and still be as free as possible. You can still hold all the values that you have and still maintain liberty as the highest value possible. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We can collectively, as a state, if we all, because we all seem to, there seems to be a majority, if it's so fucking 30, lawsuits can come against Governor Inslee and they're all good to go. There seems to be a consensus in this state of things that we believe.
Yeah.
Why then does the governor need to force us to believe those things?
Because they have the power.
Why? No, not even why do you have to do it. I'm question.
why
to
do
the
they
people.
force us?
Why do we need the government to force us to do these things that for some we all apparently are in consensus on as a state, right? Why? Why can we not agree to do it as a free people and allow an implementation system unbeholden to a fucking dictator-like governor such as Jay Inslee? Why?
Yep.
There's no reason.
There's no
you
reason.
know? And so I struggle. I struggle with leaving because it's so important to me that people here in this state understand that. And even if it's only 3 people on our cast that are watching every single week. It's important to me, the people that live here and are watching us here. Zeke is from here, right? Even if he's in Indiana now, he's from here. It's important to me the people here understand you aren't alone. This is the right way to think. And I'll say that objectively, subjectively, I believe this to be true. Freedom is the way to go.
Period.
Liberty is the way to be. That's it.
That's the way to do it. And I would say, kind of to my point I was talking about earlier about man up and quit your job if that's required. The same kind of applies when you're looking at the state you live in and all that. It's one thing if you're in California, right? Because the social fabric of California is more on the same tilt as their government.
Right.
I don't get that same vibe here, at least now, because there is so much rural going on around here as far as the social fabric is concerned. Our seats of power are in population centers that drive the political change and the laws. But the social fabric, man, forget about it. You go over the mountains, go to the east side, it's a totally different state.
Yes.
A totally different state. You go, mind you, you have our rural counties up on the north end of the peninsula that have gone totally woke. But even then, there's a lot of people from what I'm hearing. I haven't been up there to investigate necessarily. A lot of local places aren't enforcing the mandates necessarily, but I'm going to go to an event tomorrow, barring a total downpour, up in Port Angeles. It's an outdoor. It's a PA Crab Fest, and it's an outdoor event, and there are no vaccine requirements required to get in. So that's super dope. Everybody's masking, but that's just what we do now. So, but yeah, I'm going to go experience that. I think tomorrow, as long as it's not terrible. The weather forecast isn't that great, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah.
With that, I
yeah,
think
with
we'll
that,
probably end this extremely.
Why don't you do a plug
pre-show.
real quick? Because I want to show off the. Boom.
That's what I was just gonna do.
Look
there
at
you
that.
Go. That's our little. What do you call this?
I call it a splash page,
Splash page.
tear sheet. I don't really know.
There's a name for it.
Yeah.
Either way, splash page. I like that. Yeah. So obviously you can follow us on all these things here. I'm at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Collins at Big Bird Offie on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter, and you can follow us on Instagram, Salt of the Streets, Patreon, patreon.com/Salt of the Streets, our website, saltofthestreets.com for all this information. Obviously you've been watching us on YouTube at Salt of the Streets. It's fantastic. If you're on Instagram, we have a link tree there with all of our everything there. If not,
all of our stuff, including the Discord you put on there.
The Discord is on there, exactly. Yeah, we have a Discord, Patreon, access to all of those things. We have different tiers and everything. The
I
website
posted some more food pics on there last night too
go.
from our lovely taco joint downtown Kingston, which is phenomenal.
There you go.
Had some asada fries last night.
Love it.
Oh my! I've never had those before, and it was.
Yeah, we've been getting more into the Discord, posting obviously some food pics and some different articles and stuff like that we're reading throughout the week and throughout the day. We're throwing some things in there, so. Good place to go. Let us know what you think. With that, also Twitch, Lexi Kayo, Leggings and Aprons on Instagram for cakes. Jordan did like a truck cake this weekend.
Woo!
Grass, like dirt in the yard and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah.
With that, that's it. Larry's going to be on the regular show. We'll see you in just a few minutes on the regular show. We're going to have more beer. We're going to talk about this book. All these, you can see them all.
So many.
All these
I'm so
things
excited.
here. Some more on the side here. There you go. Now you can see them all. That's
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good show. It's going to be great.
It's already a good show. This is just the first part of it,
It's
baby.
hot. We're out here.
The rebels are in the house. Peace out.